If the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say this was their finest hour.
We stand for Queen,
country, and video games. BRB UK.
Worse teeth,
better accents.
Hello, and indeed, ahoy, hoy, and welcome to episode 313. A show that is, to some, the 313th episode of BRB UK, but to many is, I would like to say, an audiovisual homage to a wonderful A-road, A313.
I really wondered where the hell you were going with that. Okay.
Which I believe passes through Teddington, which is quite near me. It's actually quite near me.
Good.
So fun local fact. Welcome to said Memorial Teddington episode of the show.
Memorial? Did the road die?
It might have done. Well, was it ever really alive?
If a road falls in Teddington and no one's there to hear it scream.
Yeah, that's Tim, if you haven't worked out just the inane jibber-jabber that's coming in his direction. But you probably will notice that there is no sign of a Coleman again this week.
We're Colemanless.
Yeah, we are Colemanless, so we're joined by the nearest thing to a man we could find, and that's Diarmuid.
Hello there.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you good? How good?
I'm questioning now how roads die. I'm guessing it's just rainfall.
Well, you know, did they ever really live?
That's true.
Did they ever really live?
All roads lead to hell. So... No, the A313, also known as Park Road, which goes through Teddington, will take you to the National Physical Laboratory. Good.
Yep.
So we can... nationally...
Is this data you've gleaned from Forza Horizon 3?
No, this is data there's this wonderful website, check it out, it's called Google.
Yes.
And I now need to get my A314 jokes ready
When did this podcast become a dramatic reading of Google Maps? Like, what? What have we stumbled into?
Right. I mean, in all fairness, originally I was going
the next segue.
Turn around. Turn around when it's safe to do so. So I was originally going to go for like the Cooler Shaker. I thought it was a 303, because the Cooler Shaker song 303 is about the A303, which goes to Glastonbury.
Good.
But it's obviously not 303, it's 313.
We've overshot the mark there somewhat.
I did, but I'd like to think that if there was going to be a hip-hop-hoppening music festival near Slough, it would be in Teddington.
Sounds about right.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, chaps, what have you been up to?
Playing games.
Games.
I tell you what, there's been a lot of humble pie eating going around. Particularly, I'm looking at you, Sony.
I thought you were looking at my belly. Sorry. Okay, yes, Sony, yes.
Sony. So hot off the heels of going, all right, we'll give this whole cross-platform thing a try. They're now magically found a way which it baffles me that it's taken them this long to work this out. But one of the major criticisms of PSN was that you could never change your PSN ID name, which I'm sure all of us have more than one PSN account for that very reason. So they're finally unlocking the ability, coming early 2019, for you to change your PSN online ID. So MC McScrubbler Doubler can now be called the Amazing Clive, which is his real name.
Good.
So he finally will no longer be shackled by his name. No longer will he have to put on a fake accent, being the Scrubbler Doubler. He will now be able to know him by his thoroughly middle-named, middle class name of Clive, which I think is better for all concerned.
It helps.
So it's just via the PS4, I understand, not PS3 or Vita.
It's via it says in the article or whatever that they released that it was via the PS4, but I'm assuming you'll be able to do this via their website as well, because they have a profile website called my.playstation something. I'm assuming you could do it there, but so far I think, at least on its initial launch, yeah, you're right, it's going to be just via the PlayStation menu. So you'll be able to get to it, I believe, by going to either the settings menu or going to your profile menu.
So the first change is free, much like it is on Xbox. I understand that your first change is free. Then after that, it's going to cost you £8 a pop if you're not a PlayStation Plus member. But if you are, you can change it for a mere £4.
Sounds reasonable.
Again, that's very like Xbox. I don't don't think they have the discount for Live Gold users, but I think it's pretty much the same cost. Which again is weird that they're charging for updating a database, but with the amount of work this clearly must have taken, they need to recoup somehow.
You know, I've got a sneaking suspicion that whichever genius set the PSN ID database up many, many moons ago, the user ID was the key field. I bet you that's what it was, rather than a separate alphanumeric identifier. Like if you look on BigRedBarel.com, in our users database, the key field which all the other stuff links for me isn't Dan, it's a user number. And that's, if you have a user number as your key field, as your unique identifier, you can then change your IDs as often as you like. So clearly Sony employed some kind of steaming idiot back in 2005. But what I quite like about this is that you can kind of go the Prince route and be the artist formerly known as. So you can have your old PSN ID displayed alongside your new one. So that's cool. So it could be, my name is Clive, aka Empty Throbbler Doubler, if he still wants to, relive the good old days. But it sounds like this is a permanent thing. So if you decide to display it, you're stuck with displaying it. If you decide not to, then you won't be able to display it again in future. Now, as with all of these things, there's a wrinkle.
This is kind of left over from the fact that you're probably correct. It was using the actual username as the primary key, which means that older titles which may have tried to use that as part of from the API might be screwed.
Yeah, so apparently all PS4 games published after April 1st, 2018, and a large majority of the most played PS4 games released before that date won't be affected. However, those not covered by that, so there are going to be some PS4 games, and by the sounds of it, all PS3 and PS Vita systems, they're not guaranteed to support this, and it's a little unclear whether or not they're just going to display the old ID or whether or not they're going to fail hard. And, I have to say, there may be issues or errors, and, frankly, I don't know what Sony's appetite would be to go back and retroactively patch stuff on the PS3 and Vita, since they're now discontinued platforms.
They have said that if there's any problems, that you can revert back to your old ID.
Yeah.
If it's causing too many problems.
And you can do that for free.
And that will resolve most issues caused by the ID change.
I think a lot of games are probably just going to display the old name, but I think they're covering their backsides by saying that there might be errors and stuff like that. And that's what this new beta that they're going to be launching later this year to cover this will more than likely find out. Because you will have those people who are going back to older games and things will happen and that'll get reported. So we shall see, I'm guessing.
Do you know what, though? Do you know one thing I do know?
What's that?
Rain. It's actually started raining here. But rain is an xCloud, is it not?
Yes.
Mostly.
Right.
It's
tenuously
formerly a cloud.
Formerly a cloud, okay. Microsoft, lovers of the cloud, I think we can all agree. They love the cloud back in 2013. They're now harnessing not the power of the cloud, but the power of the xCloud. In their new game streaming service that is apparently on its way. And the project aims to bring, and you'll like this will raise a smile for you, Diarmuid, console quality games to the PC.
That's a downgrade, surely.
Yeah, exactly. My inner PC master race nerd came to the fore there. But bring console quality games to PC, consoles, and smartphone devices, and it will start rolling out in public trials starting in 2019. No more specific details than that. So you're going to be able to use an Xbox One controller connected to a supported device. Smartphones can be used via Bluetooth. Or you can have a dongle.
You can have a dongle.
Yeah, everyone can have a dongle, mate.
Everybody.
Dongles for everybody. Just make sure you wash it, okay? That's all I ask. And don't use your dongle more than once on separate. Don't use the same dongle on separate phones. That's just not hygienic.
Fair enough.
Good.
Fair enough.
So yes, it uses, surprise, surprise, Microsoft's Azure, their cloud platform. As all right, are you ready for some slightly rubbish corporate speak here?
I'm braced.
As a backbone to set up their network of new data centers with customized hardware that uses the parts of multiple Xbox One consoles.
So it's basically just a bunch of servers with some Xbox VMs running on them. That's what's going to run the game. Okay, fair enough.
Exactly. Now, I mean, one of the things that is not quite clear here is how they're going to combat the perennial problem of these game streaming services, which is lag. Now, I was lucky enough to get an invite to the GeForce Now beta program, which is NVIDIA's essentially equivalent of this, where you can ostensibly play the games that you own on more powerful hardware, but the rub is that more powerful hardware is remote. So let's say you own a copy of Assassin's Creed Origins, but you only have a computer that can run Excel at a push. This would allow you to use your license because you own that game, but play it on remote hardware and reap the benefits of a kind of a fully pumped gaming rig on an underpowered system. Now, that's great, and the visual quality is fantastic, but there is still very, very, very noticeable input lag. And, what they're saying here is that they're developing ways to combat latency. Great, okay, glad to hear that. And then with current tests running at 10 megabits per second. Now, my inner nerd is angry at this.
Why?
Tim, my inner nerd is angry, and I think you're going to...
What about your outer nerd?
He's also angry.
Okay.
Yeah, both of them not chuffed.
Good.
And I think, dear man, you're going to join me in this when I make this criticism.
Go ahead.
Megabits per second. That is a rate of data. It has nothing to do with latency. It's a bit like saying, hey, I drove up the motorway really fast because my car is orange. It's essentially the same thing. I mean, you can have really fast data transfer. You can have 10 megabits per second being transmitted one way. The latency could be a month. And the same 10 megabits a second comes back the other way. This statement has no bearing on whether or not the damn thing's actually going to be playable or not.
You kind of need to cover not only that megabits per second one way and the other way, but you also need to cover the distance to the data center that it's going to actually get the actual...
Isn't that always the problem as well? That distance is always a problem, therefore some people will experience a better service than others, and it depends how far you are as to how good the service is.
Yeah, well, I mean, in all fairness, Microsoft does have Azure data centers on just about every landmass. And obviously, the closer you are to the server that's hosting your instance of that game, the better the experience is going to be. But that's not the case for everybody. And also, at times, if there's a lot of network congestion, for example, that can push your latency up. And it really can affect the playability of certain games, like driving games, for example. If latency goes massively up, you suddenly feel very disconnected from the feeling of actually driving a car.
It doesn't even have to be the biggest style of action game as well. I mean, I had problems with this on PlayStation Now. Like, even with that service, like, the problem was the latency. Like, it was impossible to play. Well, not impossible, but very increased difficulty and frustration to play a pinball game, for example.
Yeah, PlayStation in a bit.
And fighting games. Like, I think Street Fighter 4 was one that they had on there initially, and that was, really hard to play as well, sort of thing.
Any kind of game that comes down to needing button presses between frames, which fighting games do, especially high-level ones, yes, you're going to see that. Games like RPGs or stuff from Quantic Dream that doesn't exactly need like precision button presses, but it just needs to be pressed within a relatively small time frame, then that's fine. I think that's one of the reasons that Google are doing their own Project Stream testing at the moment, and the game they chose to test it with was Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah, it's a good one to test with.
It's a decent action game, but again, it's not one of those ones that really needs sort of precision, like the time frame you need to press a button within, for instance, for dodging an attack, which is probably the most time sensitive thing that you can do in there, is not kind of minuscule. It's quite forgiving.
Yeah, and it's something you can adjust the timing of how you do it in association to the game. Like, I would say that if you did that and then went to play on a console, there would be a noticeable difference that would take you a period of time to readjust to, whereas you could get comfortable with just playing it that way when streaming. Whereas, as you say, in other games, when you're reacting or having to do things on a much more sort of minuscule kind of level, then it becomes much more of a problem. But even, as I said, like, I didn't have a massive problem in the pinball game, but two friends I was playing with, like, swore blind they could not play the game because of the lag, basically. I was just like, okay.
And again, it's more than likely down to their location in relation to the data center compared to yours. So your experience would have been better, yeah.
But that was actually playing in the same place. Like, I just wasn't as sensitive to it, or just didn't pick up on it.
Or you just have an abject lack of reactions,
No, but
Tim.
whereas I noticed it in the Street Fighter just possibly because I was more used to that game, possibly, as well. You know, like,
and there is also, lots of other factors, like, is your computer or your console connected via Ethernet or Wi-Fi? I mean, even like in-home streaming solutions like NVIDIA Shield, the Steam Link device, if you're over wireless in your home, both devices are over wireless, even input lag can become a problem over your local network, let alone over the internet. So, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing to see. I mean, unfortunately, the hard limit of all of these things is the speed of light. There's a maximum that you cannot get around the fact that there will be a delay between you sending data to the States and that data being acknowledged and you getting that signal back that it's been acknowledged. And that's just physics is limiting that.
Yeah, and does this make online games less likely to be able to take advantage of this over and above single player stuff as well, a little bit? Or
yes and no. I mean, I think all online games have to do with lag in some way or another, or packet loss in some way or another. But certainly games where you're streaming the content as well, there's an extra level of latency. So it's kind of, it is you put an input into the game that has to get sent to the server has to recognize it then has to send the video back to you, it then has to send the position to everyone else's position data comes back to you, that then gets updated on the screen, which has to get sent back to you. So it all can start, but you're more likely to notice lag, I would imagine, in online games. And I'm no network engineer, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one of those things that's always struck me as a really nice idea, but I think it's very telling that PlayStation Now, which was kind of singing from the rooftops a couple of years ago about being this amazing game streaming service, has now begun offering the option of downloading games instead, and I think that is quite telling.
But see, yeah, that's for me, it's really weird. Like, it would be odd if either Google or Microsoft actually got ahead of PlayStation when they had this a while ago. Like, I wonder if the whole PlayStation Now was a badly named thing that doesn't really tell you what it does as much, kind of thing. No, I don't know.
I think if anyone is going to get ahead of PlayStation in terms of this, like, PlayStation are not a big network infrastructure company. Is true, yeah. I mean, they're kind of basically borrowing from everyone else in that kind of sense, because they don't have huge data centers of their own to go around. Whereas you've companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft that have existing cloud kind of technology in place that they can tap into, which certainly does help. But again, we come down to the same thing. You basically need a lot of these devices, the servers that are going to be running these Xboxes, you need them dispersed pretty evenly around the place, like in various data centers rather than one big one. And that way it'll cut down the distance that you need to travel wherever you are to get to that data center, and via the streaming service. And that might help. But again, it's nice that people are getting into this streaming thing, but I still think it's a good bit away from being the preferred service. Like, I don't mind people having limited internet connectivity in terms of caps and stuff. Therefore, they probably don't want to download games. Streaming might be an option for them for certain games, at least.
But I do wonder, in a similar way to how online gaming kind of informed the decisions that people were making about the type of games that they were making.
Yeah.
I wonder if streaming could do a similar thing, and we could see a shift in the type and style of games of making, in a similar shift that we saw to mobile, even, kind of thing.
It might limit not limit, but certainly it might encourage developers to go for a certain type of online game rather than a kind of a quick reaction one. Yeah, it is entirely possible. It's kind of strange that you see, like, EA mentioned it during their E3 press conference. Microsoft mentioned it quite heavily during their conference. There's rumors that the next Xbox, the Scarlet or whatever, is going to have like a Scarlet Lite version, which is primarily for using this kind of cloud.
Yeah, no drive.
You know, so
that'll be that.
Everybody seems to be driving in that direction, and it's pretty obvious why, in terms of like they get to control the ecosystem a lot more easily, and they do get people away from the whole fact of, oh, I bought a game, therefore I own it kind of mindset, which they've been trying to do for years.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if the next console generation actually kind of takes on the kind of the shaver model, which is that you buy your first pack for really cheap, buying the handle that the blades go on, even though it's probably more expensive than a blade, they sell it below cost, because they can then sell you the blades for a massive price. I wouldn't be surprised if the next console generation we see an element of that, where the hardware price is driven down, but perhaps hidden costs of ownership go up.
I don't want to shave my face with a console, Dan.
Mate, you can do whatever you want. It's
like,
a free world, buddy.
That Xbox is dangerous. If I drop that on my face, I could squash.
The original PS4, though, has that nice tapered edge.
It does.
Tapered edge that you can kind of slide it on your
Tim,
face.
if you could cut your face, just go, oh yeah. No? Too soon? Too soon.
No, I liked it. I thought you would. I did laugh.
But talking of surprising things, I'm not quite sure how that was surprising. Oh, yeah. Microsoft are buying another indie studio, one whom they actually have a history of falling out quite badly with back in 2012. So Microsoft are going to buy Obsidian Entertainment, them of Knights of the Old Republic 2 and Fallout New Vegas fame.
This is a rumor, but pretty much everybody seems to be taking this as fact now, even though it hasn't been officially announced.
Yeah.
So it does sound like this is definitely happening.
So, I mean, other studios they bought recently include Playground. Well, it's not that recently, but Playground Entertainment, Ninja Theory, and of course, Mojang.
I think this is just like all of those purchases. This is kind of looking ahead to that next console, and they want to come out swinging in terms of first-party stuff because they've seen how much that has benefited PlayStation. Like, if they have a crap ton of talented first-party studios, and this is certainly one of those, then yeah, this is just looking better and better for Xbox fans and gamers everywhere, really. Obviously, it's disappointing that potentially Obsidian games won't be available on other platforms like Switch and PlayStation, but
you say that, but I know Minecraft was on these platforms from before that, but you know, it's not a never say never anymore with this iteration of Microsoft Xbox.
I wonder who's going to be the first. Like, obviously, you do mention Microsoft there, or Minecraft, I should say, and that was a kind of a pre-existing. It was already out on those platforms, therefore they kind of support them anyway. But I wonder, like, based on all of the kind of moves that Microsoft have been making, where platform is becoming less and less important ahead of actually kind of having their games just available for people to get almost anywhere. They seem to be the company that will probably make the first step of having their first parties make games that are available everywhere.
Yeah.
Or certainly, like, maybe you might like have the best version on the Xbox, but there'll be versions that PlayStation and Switch users can buy into that they can cross-play with and all that kind of stuff. I mean, whether Nintendo and Sony will allow that on their platforms is another thing, but like, it's like, if any company is going to do that, certainly with the moves they've been making recently, Microsoft seem to be the ones that might do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think Microsoft have kind of tapped out of this generation. I think they're now in kind of, right, what comes next? Get the planning in for that. And I think this is a sign of that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you know, we're going to see a massive expansion and a massive good AAA lineup for the launch of whatever the next Xbox is going to be called in probably around 2020, I would imagine.
Do we know what Obsidian's working on at the moment? I think they just did. Did they just do South Park? Was it them that did South Park?
It wasn't their latest one, the Pillars of Eternity 2?
Oh, okay, they did
wasn't
that.
Right.
Yeah, I think they said they were working on something, an RPG that was going to be published via a division of 2K Games, I think. But nothing confirmed. There was no like title or no demo, nothing like that out and about.
I do like that this is also Microsoft going out of their way to get a developer of a genre that they're not really known very well for, if you know what I mean. Like, obviously you've Age of Empires, but like RPG, like niche kind of titles don't seem to be what you would generally find in first parties. But you still have, Sony has their, I think it's in San Mateo or something, whatever developer they have doing like MLB. And those games sell every single year.
Yeah.
And they have a dedicated audience. Microsoft has never been known as the RPG console. That's always kind of been PlayStation and a bit more with Switch as well. But like I like seeing this because this means that it looks like they're open to kind of purchasing first parties that will not just make the usual stuff that they always make.
It'll give them a broader lineup, basically, which is exactly what they need, basically.
Agreed. Absolutely. Like that, it's just encouraging to see, I think.
Interesting times lie ahead. I think the next console generation is going to be very, very, very different to the one we've seen. And there'll be doubtless something about ray tracing, and NVIDIA is in everything these days. Or will be in everything
and
these
free
days.
sync. You'll read about free sync everywhere and still not understand what it is, because I don't.
My RTX will be on.
Poor Tim will be left behind.
I know. So anyway, just some quick fire points of interest before we go on to what we have done played. Bully 2!
Oh.
I know, Bully 2, the follow-up to Bully 1, unsurprisingly. The casting call for that may have kind of been inadvertently leaked. Well, not leaked's the wrong word, but there's casting calls gone out, which is like an unannounced video game with a UK game developer shooting at Pinewood Studios that may involve mild violence and profanity in scenes with a young performer.
Yeah, and the casting calls themselves are for young people, like teenagers and young adults. So,
and also directly mention stuff like college professors as well.
Nice.
Bully 2, right up there.
How do we apply?
Well, I would be...
You could be a professor.
I'd be quite up for being a professor. I do that. I can do that.
Professor Plums.
How close are you to Pinewood, by the way?
Very, actually.
Nice.
Very. In fact, exceedingly close. Let's have a look.
Make Dan teach again.
I used to teach at university. It's fine. I could do it.
Yeah, exactly. You're a lecturer.
That's lecturer, not lecturer. Okay, they're very different. Yeah, Pinewood Studios is
I'd go with either,
literally
but okay.
Is steady. It's literally 15 minutes drive from me. Rockstar, let's talk.
Hello.
Let's talk. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Everyone else, pester them so I get a job doing voiceover.
Professor Gibbons.
Yeah, mate. Be all good. Yes, so, Bully's a thing.
Yes.
Talking of... Yeah, I don't know how to segue to this. Blops. Here we go. Okay, talking about ill-gotten ways to spend your teenage years. Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Apparently, the physical release is... Okay, so surprise, we're in the world in which we live. You get a game on a disc, you can't get to play it straight away because you've got to download a patch before you can launch the game on day one. Now, okay, I'm quite used to these being, 500 meg, a gig, maybe even 3 or 4 gig.
How big is your gig?
My gig is approximately 1,024 megabytes.
Good.
Or 1,000 if you're really lazy, or 1,024 times table.
Good.
Yes. Right. Let's just take some bets here. Okay. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 has a day one patch. Okay. We all agree on that. It's got that going for it. How big do you think it is?
Am I supposed to ignore the fact that it's written in front of me?
Please do.
Right.
Just perhaps just pluck out the idea if you hadn't seen that vital bit of information.
Okay.
What you would expect a day one patch to be.
49.5 gigs.
You are a band. So it's 50 gig, Tim, thanks. Trying to build some suspense here.
Oh, wow, I'm so close. I just 50 the number out of the air.
All right, so I'm one of the plebs that you mentioned earlier that's spending too much time with this because I actually have this pre-ordered. So I already have it downloaded because I pre-ordered the digital version.
Right.
And I have it installed right now because the preload came out the night before last or whatever it was. the game installed right now without like the future content, like the maps and all that kind of stuff, which obviously isn't going to be included in this day one patch either. The entire installed game is 55 gig.
Right, so
So you're downloading 50 gig on launch day if you get the disc, which means that you're basically downloading the entire game.
I'm just going to put this out there, okay? The capacity of a Blu-ray, of a double-A Blu-ray, is 50 gig. Just going to put that out there.
So they couldn't have got the whole game on the disc, is what you're saying?
There is basically, they're selling you a Blu-ray that has a readme.txt file on it, going, please, the contents of which read, please insert game here. I think it's pretty much what it comes down to. But I mean, I must admit that, you know, I'm slightly bagging on Coblops 4. It seems duly appropriate. But I never actually got stuck into any of the betas. Did you try the 1,000 off people with camouflage paint on their face to parachute onto an island and shoot the living crap out one another? Did you? I actually heard that was quite good.
And that's why I have it pre-ordered.
Really?
I mean, I was so on the fence for so long because like there was so much about COD that I don't like, but this, like the fact that it got rid of the single player campaign was even more on the side of not picking this up. But the Blackout mode, which is the mode that you're talking about there, like I was in the beta and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was basically, imagine PUBG if it ran well.
Oh, bloody hell, that sounds quite good fun.
Yeah, it's like, that's what it is. It's incredibly polished PUBG and it's really fun. And I remember playing it and enjoying it and I was like, I'm going to have to get this, won't I? And I have. Yeah, so there's a few of us who've gotten it now. So yeah, it looks like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing that's keeping me from it is just the kind of historically toxic community.
Yes, that's what I'm worried about. Like the beta wasn't too bad, but that was mostly because I was just in parties with, you know, the 4 people that I was jumping onto an island with. So it was fine. But yeah, I can definitely see potentially getting into it for too long. Like I'm pretty much almost exclusively just going to be doing the mode, the Blackout mode. I don't see myself going into the multiplayer too often. Maybe zombies, because that's co-op as well. But yeah, it's mostly going to be the online, the Blackout mode.
Well, fair dinkum, mate.
Yeah.
Fair dinkum. Yeah. Are you going to be jumping into the old Coblops, Tim?
No.
Excellent. Good. Good. Great story.
No,
That's
no
fantastic.
single player meant no interest for Tim. So
no single player meant no Tim.
Yes.
I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyway, Switch. 19 games out this very day. 19!
Which sounds like a ridiculous amount, really.
Yeah, but not all of them are that good.
Yeah, but it's too many to even investigate which ones aren't ones I've heard of before, almost, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
look, okay, correct me here if you think I'm way off base, but I booted up my Switch for the first time in a while since I've been distracted by Surprise Destiny 2 and Surprise Forza Horizon 4.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so and I've now kind of signed up to the online service, which, there seems to be a lot of kind of slightly quasi-porn girlfriend simulator games on it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
What's that about?
That's a thing.
Yeah,
I believe it's called Easy Money.
It's not a good look.
It's probably the length of time it took them to port them after they came out in Japan, probably near a launch.
You don't really kind of get the whole idea that Nintendo still have that whole stamp of approval thing.
That seal of approval stamping thing got thrown away a long time ago.
It's now a thumbprint of acquiescence is what it is. Wow, that was quite a good word for this time of evening. I'm quite impressed with myself. And also 3 of them are demos.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a stretch, but I mean, they did say that they're going to be putting out more games, and I'm not necessarily sure that their current, I like their setup of their shop and the current way they do their news and all that type of stuff on the Switch. I don't think that is suitable for the quantity of games they're going to be pumping through it going forward, and those games getting an appropriate amount of limelight type thing. You know what I mean? And I worry about one of two things. Either a lot of games are going to fall through the cracks, or they're going to have to significantly change the system in a way that I probably won't like as much as they have at the moment.
I don't believe there is an online store yet for video games that does curation well.
No.
I don't think any of them get it right. Because you've Steam where it's a free-for-all, where you honestly have no idea what's coming out week day to day, never mind week to week. There's so much stuff, so much crap, that the real kind of the pearls, the ones that you really want to look for, the diamonds in the rough, are so bloody scattered out. The
sweet corn in the
impossible
turd.
to find. Exactly. Whereas it's going the same way with the console games as well. Like the PlayStation Store is the same thing.
To be fair, I don't know what the Xbox Store's like because I haven't been in it for years.
Although I have to say the Switch store is particularly egregious.
It's pretty bad. It's mostly because, like, as you say, there's like 19 games out today. Thursday is its kind of launch day. And I'd say I've looked through the list and there's maybe 2 or 3 decent games in there. Which are unfortunately ports, so I've already played them on on other systems. But like the rest of them is just, it looks like just tosh, but that kind of happens week on week to the point where like the amount of tosh compared to the amount of stuff that you might like. Like, fair enough, I don't want people restricted on the Switch. I don't want developers restricted from putting stuff out, but at the same time, it would be nice if there was some decent form of curation on there.
Yeah, or even just user ratings. Please, finally, for the love of God, can we have some user ratings?
Although I don't know how much use they are, because like they have user ratings on the PlayStation Store, and some games are getting some reviews that I'm like...
Yeah, I know. But I mean, that being said, there are a couple of diamonds in the rough. There's Child of Light Ultimate Edition and Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. If you've never played either of those, pick them up because they're both fantastic.
I was more interested in Game Dev Story as much as I played it loads on my phone. Like, it did used to melt my phone. in terms of battery,
I'm not quite sure I can justify the £9 on Game Dev Story again.
Yeah, I might wait for that to be on sale at the moment, but yeah.
But I mean, it's good to see, proper indie support for the Switch. But it's getting to the stage, especially since the store interface on the Switch itself is not exactly what I call responsive.
Really, I think that struggled more as more and more content's come to it. I think before it was okay, kind of thing. I kind of liked, like, I don't know about you, I find it difficult a lot of the time just to watch a trailer on the Sony store. Like, it's really buggy. It doesn't work all that well a lot of the time. Sometimes the sound comes in, sometimes it doesn't. And I find that more annoying to use than the Switch at the moment, at least.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
I'm making my decisions to buy games not on the store. I make my decision off the store. And then I just the way I get to the game is then through the store. So I know exactly where I'm going. I skip all the junkiness and the crap, and I get to the game and I buy it and I download it, and that's it.
Yeah, most of the games that I buy now, and it's a bit biased because I get review codes for stuff, so that's easier to do through the store sometimes as well. But when on a desktop computer type thing. It's one of those things that could go either way. I definitely think something needs to be done about their store at the moment, though. But
talking about things that something needs to be done about. Now, as part of this, I signed up for my 7 days of Nintendo Switch Online, which I will be have further money extracted from my wallet. It really pees me off that you do the...
Should probably cancel that as we have one space left on the BigRedBarel family, but still...
All right, I might do that then. You sign up for having a look, and it auto signs you up to a recurring payment for the most expensive option, which is a bit of a dick move. So I finally had a little kick of the tyres on that, and wow, that's an underwhelming service at the moment.
Yep.
Wow!
Were you not prepared by the online service that they were in beta, with air quotes
No. The keyword wasn't beta. The keyword here, Dan, was the association of Nintendo and the word online.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a stigma they're not going to live down. It's certainly not this gen anyway, with what they've released.
I mean, it's nice to see some of the NES stuff.
I don't know about you, I played most of the NES stuff and went, oh, Yoshi's Island is a different game than I remembered, but most of the rest of this is crap.
Yeah, and what the snot is going on with the special version of Legend of Zelda?
Well, yeah, that's something that they added today, and we're going to say, but they added 3 new games, and as much as I kind of derided the first release. I don't even know if we talked about it on the show, but I didn't care enough even to necessarily mention it. But the whole NES stuff, like, other people are interested, that's fine. I'm not, knocking you, but it just does nothing for me, basically. And most of the games on there, I was like, oh yeah, Donkey Kong is a really boring crap game. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's fine in the time, I just don't like playing it in the modern age kind of thing. It's not a game I like going back to.
It makes you feel very glad that we live in the world in which we now live.
It makes you feel, if a game makes you just appreciate other games, and to be honest, like, there's some games coming out in this lot, like NES Open Golf, that's exactly the same thing. NES Open Golf will make you appreciate a modern day golf game a hell of a lot. I'm playing Golf Story at the moment, and there's literally a game within that game that's basically NES Open Golf, because it's played on a console within the game.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're all old games. Solomon's Key, I don't even remember. I saw someone else playing some footage of it today. I was like, I have no memory of this game whatsoever, and no, not for Tim at all.
I heard that game had a pretty bad region lock in it.
Yeah.
No? No one?
Come on.
No one. All right, okay.
Dodgeball's a game loads of people went on about. Again, I never played it back in the day. I looked at footage and went, okay, I can kind of see the appeal, but not. I don't care enough. I might play it at some point. We'll come back to it. But yeah, the most interesting thing, I think, was I quite liked the way they presented those new games. They're all kind of like in the Nintendo unwrapping present type fashion, and that the presentation of that, it was a nice kind of touch. But then added to that, the fact that the last thing you unwrap is a special version of The Legend of Zelda. It just says special on the corner. It doesn't really tell you what it is. But apparently it's a version where you get access to a load of like what I assume is quite late game content.
It's basically Legend of Zelda Easy Mode.
Yeah.
So, like, the original Legend of Zelda is actually very similar to, in terms of design at least, it's very similar to Breath of the Wild. So it kind of throws you in the world, and then you just kind of figure it out. You go in and you do, and there's no kind of instructions. It's sort of, you just explore. And that was what the original Legend of Zelda was like. And a lot of people, like, despite, like, Breath of the Wild was designed in such a way that was fine. It kind of explained some stuff, but it let you be completely free. And a lot of people liked that. And when they heard about The Legend of Zelda being the original one being similar, they kind of jumped into it. It's a steep learning curve, though. Whereas this special version, it starts you off with a bunch of rupees, some of the weapons that you get kind of later on, as you mentioned. And it just says, okay, now we've souped you up a little bit. We've given you a bit more than what you would normally start with. Go and enjoy the game. And I liked it. Like, fair enough, it is just Legend of Zelda Easy Mode. It gives you a few things at the start. But I like that Nintendo did that. I just like and I wonder what they're going to do for other games.
I don't care about this game, but I think it's a really interesting thing in Nintendo being playful almost with their old software, and it adds a whole new level of interest to it. It's literally them making that game more accessible for new gamers or someone that wants to dive back into it and just mess around with it, or like, a new generation that might have been less patient to jump into it, possibly. I'm not necessarily...
When they eventually release Ghosts and Goblins, whenever that comes out, because I'm sure that's going to happen, I do hope they do an easy mode, because then I might get past that first level.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, it's... I just want to see some Super Nintendo stuff on there. I really do.
Yes. That needs to be next... At a minimum, next E3. They need to say, and now SNES Classic or whatever.
Like, how much software is there on the NES that could actually sustain? Like, I know there's probably hundreds of games, but is there hundreds of games that people actually care about? Like, I don't know how much.
Well, I don't know how many people care about Dodgeball, I'll be quite honest.
Exactly, yeah, but no, that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's that many NES games that can sustain them for that long without them going to the SNES side of things. Maybe not, and I'm not saying as early as next year, and maybe E3 they might wait till then, but I could see that possibly coming a bit sooner than. Otherwise, they're really going to be having to eke out these games. I guess
there are still a few classic games to come for NES, at least what I would consider classic.
Whoa.
Exactly.
No, Balloon Fight's all right.
Marble Madness, things like that. I'm sure those are on the way. But I still think that, yeah, you're right. They're going to run out of games worthwhile games pretty quickly. So therefore, I do think SNES is definitely on the cards.
Give me Super Metroid, I'll be well happy.
Yeah.
That's all I ask. I don't ask for much apart from that.
Because as soon as it gets to SNES, it gets the games that I know and like and care about, and other things I want to mess about with. And...
I would also like to play through Super Mario World for the umpteenth
Oh,
time.
it's such a good game. Best Mario game, without a shadow of a doubt.
Agreed.
So yes, so that's Nintendo. Watch them as they stumble forth through this brave new world of online entertainment that's only been about since the late 90s. The only other thing I just wanted to touch on here, and this is something we'll probably come back to another week, is there has been some shenanigans going on. Shenanigans, I do call shenanigans in the PC gaming world, because Intel have just announced their 9th series Core i something chips. So you've got like the Core i5, Core i7, now the Core i9, all of which require a new motherboard to be purchased as well. Surprise, surprise. And Intel, again, surprise, surprise, are extolling the virtues of their new processors, saying they are the most powerful gaming processors known to man and woman, presumably. But it actually turns out that, they commissioned a report ahead of the launch of their 9th series chips, and they got an independent lab to do it, but they've basically given they've tested things in bizarre ways, like not actually directly capture footage and measure how long it takes to generate a frame on average. They've used in-game metrics of how many frames a second are being spat out, which are always inaccurate. But they've also hobbled their competitor platform, Comparator. So essentially, they've slowed down the memory timings. They've set the AMD Threadripper or Ryzen chips up with basically, they've tied one hand behind its back and chopped off a leg.
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans. But I just find it really distasteful. I mean, my day-to-day job is being trying to be a good scientist, trying to make sure everything I do is peer-reviewed, that it's valid, that I'm always making fair comparisons, and this is properly shady by Intel, properly shady.
Which isn't the first time they've been shady, or indeed AMD have been shady.
Yeah, nor NVIDIA, and NVIDIA are not exactly saints when it comes to this either.
Exactly, yeah. So this it's not surprising.
No, but it's very misleading to consumers, though. It is very, very, very misleading. I mean, we haven't got time to go into it in depth here, but there's plenty of articles out there if you Google Intel misleading benchmarks that they've published these misleading benchmarks, but have forbidden any independent journalists to break NDA with their own independent benchmarks until October 19th, which is the date of the release of the processor, which is really dodgy. But what people have done is they also compared the previous generation, so the 8700K processor, against the AMD's processors. They actually inflated the scores of those as well. So it's enterprising YouTubers and tech sites have gone and essentially replicated the test using processors they're allowed to report on, and have demonstrated without doubt that Intel's hobbling of the AMD systems has basically underestimated their performance by up to about 30%. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still going to the new Intel chips are going to be very, very fast and very, very good. But I'm just deeply, deeply disappointed that a company such as Intel will be so willfully misleading to its consumers. And shame on the company who they commissioned to be willing to actually publish the damn report. I would have sent the check back. I would have done.
You would have called shenanigans.
I would have called shenanigans. I'd be like, no, look, we either do. Look, if you want me to, if you're going to commission me to do this, we're either going to do it right. We're not going to do it at all. But I suppose there's always other companies out there who would just take the paycheck and go, yeah, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to write on this bit of paper? Wicked. Yeah, okay, fine, we'll do that. Yeah, you're 1,000,000% better. Congratulations. Where's my check?
As you said, may come back to it if more things come to light, but hey.
Indeedy. But Tim, you're a man. Yes, who likes tactics.
Yeah.
You do. You also like Tic Tacs, more specifically.
Yeah, true.
And you've been eating Tic Tacs on the Space Hulk. Tell me about it.
Yeah, basically.
Good.
Well, this game appealed to me. Like anyone does know, Space Hulk is a kind of board game, Warhammer 40k type thing, all Space Marine related.
Space Marine!
And yeah, there's been a lot of Warhammer and even more so like Warhammer 40k, I would say, like games, and even quite a lot of Space Hulk games floating around the last few years. And I don't know about you, I've been a bit confused as to which one's which and a bit wary of some of them and what's going in. And basically, I want a game like the old Amiga game back in the day, basically. And I am pleased to say that's pretty much what Space Hulk Tactics is, with a few added bells and whistles that kind of help modernize it. It doesn't create the best first impression with some things. Like, I found for a console the UI to be a bit small. It's a common complaint, maybe my TV's too small for modern day video games. But yeah, the UI was generally a little bit small and a bit hard to read and hard to pass information from sometimes.
Or we're just all getting really old.
Yeah, that could be it. But generally, when I was going through the game, I was like, I really like this game, and I really like it, like, because it's what I wanted out of it. It is a turn-based strategy type game. It is very much, for anyone that didn't play the old Amiga game Evolved, turn-based strategy where you've got a team. It's generally quite narrow, tight corridors, and you've got all these gene stealer aliens attacking you, and you're quite fragile when they get up close to you, but they don't really have long-range weaponry, at least the early enemies and stuff. So you can basically, kind of make sure that you're getting a firing line on them and then keep them at bay.
I mean, did you ever play the original board game?
Yes, well, I played it back in the day. I actually own a copy of it now, but I haven't played it since I bought the copy of it, partly because of the hurdle of having to glue half of it together before playing it, basically. But this takes away all of those problems, and also means that I don't need other people around to play it as well. So, like, it was always a bit of a kind of asymmetrical board game between one player taking control of the team of Terminator Space Marines and the
Space Marine
and the other team taking the control of the Gene Stealer Xenos alien things, basically. I always liked the game back in the day, but never got to play as much as I would like to. I think I didn't own it, a friend did, and whatever. But yeah, like, I loved the Amiga game back in the day, and this is the exact same sort of game. It is the turn-based strategy on a grid. It's, you, then the aliens take a turn and all that type of stuff. It does seem to have been... I don't remember if I'm remembering this wrongly, but I don't remember it having an Overwatch kind of function, or it might have done, but it didn't function in exactly the same way, or it wasn't labelled Overwatch. But basically that works in the exact same way it does with XCOM. If you're facing a particular way, then you can set yourself up to hit anything that moves in that range. You're still slightly better off being the aggressor, I've learned, basically. But yeah, like it plays, as I said, a little bit like the XCOM thing, but enough of its own thing and enough of its own flavour to still be very much Space Hulk. Also, even though it's not necessarily presented in the most high budget way, like the actual way that the story has been set up, it's kind of, the talking heads of artwork. It is voiced though, like all the dialogue's been like voiced, but there's no like cutscene type stuff for most of the things, and no like animated artwork or anything. It is just like, fixed heads, talking head type things, and dialogue back and forth. But out of all the things I've played, and it may be just stuff I've forgotten over the years and stuff that I haven't absorbed as much from other things, but from all the stuff that I've played Space Hulk related, I have a much better understanding of like the overall universe that this goes into, how the team that I am fits into that universe, what exactly a Space Hulk is, and yeah,
it's a Hulk in space.
But they've done a really good job of setting that up, and also setting up a kind of a nice mystery type thing in terms of like, okay, I want to know what's going on behind the scenes here a bit. There's a kind of shady bloke who's kind of turned up and kind of higher up government type into stuff, and I don't want to give too much away, but kind of yeah, he's basically he's there with some behind the scenes agenda and you don't know really what it is at the moment, basically. And yeah, but that kind of setup has been really quite interesting. It's not necessarily it doesn't seem like it's the hardest game at first, but then you'll make a mistake and you're like, oh, I've just lost 2 people, and I reset. And I kind of obsessed a bit too much at the beginning about like not having anyone die and trying to get through the mission without dying, whereas if someone dies, it's not quite as harsh as XCOM. The person isn't like permadeath. They're just down until the end of the mission, basically. So, yeah, I was worried about losing units for future, like, further down the line, but I didn't have to worry quite as much as I did, and I probably could have got away without resetting quite as many levels as I did early in the game, type thing. But yeah, like, if you like a turn-based strategy and at all interested in Space Hulk, either the board game or, the old video game, it's definitely something I can recommend, especially because of the price point. Because going into it, I was like, I really like this and I really like a lot of elements about it, but it's hard to recommend a game that's almost essentially the same game it was before. And I said they added a few bells and whistles. There is like a first-person mode that you can kind of move around in. It could just be that I'm so used to the other game, but as soon as I got into, like, you can press a button to go into isometric mode, and I just went in isometric mode and stayed there because you can see a lot more, and it's a lot easier to, like, engage with the tactics and stuff of what you need to do. But yeah, like, there's a tactical view that you can view to, like, see which panels are related to which, like, doors or other mechanisms, so you can see how all that sort of operates. And they've added a kind of a system. Again, I don't remember it from the board game. I don't think it's been in any of the versions before. But they've added a kind of card system where you need command points to play a certain card. Some are free, some are not. But basically, you get a certain amount. I think you get like 1 command point per turn, and you can store those and save them up if you need to. But you then can use those to activate some of the cards, and they'll give you like extra powers, like it may be just a bonus to your shot or a bonus to your melee, or it could be something more action points, so you'll basically get another turn and stuff as well. So yeah, like, that works really well, and it actually gets quite tactical because you can any of the cards you can actually trade in for a value, and the more kind of valuable powers generally give a better return of that, and they give you more action points in return that you can then use in other actions. So yeah, like, that works really well, and as I said, at times, especially at first, it may seem like it's making it too easy, but you really need to get used to doing that to get like the best out of the people that you have on the ground and give them the best chance of staying alive, basically. But yeah, easier for me to recommend because it's a £40 price point rather than a higher price point, but I'd be pretty damn close to recommending it anyway. It does come with the provisos of, kind of got to be into the genre or the game or a bit of both, but for me, it really ticks the right boxes, and find it really enjoyable.
So what you're saying is that if you like a thing, you should buy the thing.
Well, look, that's always bad advice, and I always end up almost saying
Why is that bad advice?
No,
if you like something, give it.
Yeah, but that's like
that's not bad advice. That's common sense. That's common sense, Timothy. Common sense.
Well,
Jesus,
there's not enough common sense in the world, so maybe that helps.
Christ Almighty.
So if you're looking for an XCOM alternative, this is a pretty good way to go.
Yeah, if you like Space Hulk, you should get Space Hulk. All right.
It's not quite as polished.
That's the
as XCOM.
too long didn't read version, Tim.
Yeah, but it's not quite as polished as XCOM, but less buggy from my experience as well, kind of thing.
So you're not going to be aiming at someone's face and get like a 50% chance of hitting them.
Yeah, it does go through the percentage chances of all that type of stuff as well, but you can also fudge those chances, which I quite like as well, basically.
Fair enough. Right, chaps, I think we are running out of time. I was going to talk briefly about the fact that I played more Destiny 2 and Forza Horizon 4.
You never get to talk about Destiny 2.
Well, I never get to talk about anything.
Never.
Because, Tim, we've all rabbited on far too long. Dear Med, was there anything you wanted to talk about? I've fallen on my journalistic sword here.
I'll be quite honest, I'm also probably not really going to talk too much about what I was playing, because what I've been playing is a 3-year-old game now, Rocket League. I think it's 3 years old.
You can't go around calling Rocket Game a game for 3-year-olds. That's going to piss people off on the internet, Diarmuid.
Exactly. I probably should avoid that. Apologies. Anyway, I just wanted to mention Rocket League purely because I'm kind of in the middle of games now. I finished, Spider-Man.
Oh,
I
so
loved
good.
it. Waiting for the DLC eagerly.
Yes.
I think it's dropping next week or the week after. I'm hoping.
Okay.
And then I'm waiting for Black Ops, obviously, which is out tonight or tomorrow or whatever. So I was kind of in the middle of games and I wasn't playing much outside of some VR stuff. So I have been jumping back into Rocket League. And since I've jumped back, they've had the new Rocket Pass system in place. So just before Rocket Pass came in, they introduced a level progression update because going up levels was nigh on impossible. I would play for a month and still not go up an actual level. So that's how it's just a weirdness.
You double check you were definitely not doing it wrong.
I tried. But the leveling system they had and how you actually leveled up was a mystery to me, no matter where I looked. They've evened it out now. It's basically 20,000 XP. You get XP at the end of every game. It ticks up a little timer or a bar that you see when it levels you up, and when you do level up you get a nice item at the end of it.
Nice.
So it's all kind of, it's very simplistic. It's a lot more straightforward. Right after that, and probably just they needed that in there before they went with the Rocket Pass, they've introduced this new system where you get a free just like Fortnite, you get a free pass which everybody has, and you get a premium pass. The premium pass is worth 10 keys in the game.
Right.
And in the game, so the keys you can actually earn in-game if you have the premium pass. So it's one of those, it's very similar to Fortnite where if you save them, you can actually pay for the next pass if you get to the end of the progression. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's very similar to Fortnite. Fortnite does the same thing. So you might pay for a pass, a premium pass once, and then you won't need to pay for it again if you get to the end of each progression, each season, or whatever you want to call them. But the keys, the 10 keys, I think if you're buying them, cost about £8. So that's how much a premium pass costs. And for that, you get an additional item at each level upgrade. Whereas with the free pass, you only get an item after every 5 or so levels up.
Wow, okay.
So you still get, toppers and all that kind of stuff every so often. But as part of the pass, you also get decryptors, which allow you to basically unlock crates as well for free. So that's part of the free pass as well. It'll happen very periodically only, but you still get those as well. But the premium pass gives you keys and the cryptors, and everything you get in the free pass you get with the premium pass, as well as what you get.
Yeah.
And it's basically just throwing loot at you. And I'm finding myself, like, I used to go back into Rocket League for a game or two just to enjoy it, but now I see that ticker kind of going up, that bar going up to about maybe halfway or 2/3, and I'm like, if I play maybe 2 or 3 more games, I'll get to the next one. And then of course I do the next one, and maybe the next one the reward is like 10,000 XP, and it boosts me up to halfway, and I'm like, well, I'm already almost halfway to the next one. And I've been staying up, and like last night I was up until 1. The night before I was up until about 12:30.
Oh dear.
Yeah, this is bad. I think I need to check myself in. But I just wanted to mention, if you had fallen out of love with Rocket League, now is a perfect time to jump back in, especially because this weekend is the first weekend they're doing a double XP event. So give it a try.
Well, do that. Do that as a thing and stuff. As a thing, what do you call it? Ujima flip.
Ujima flip?
Who do you flip?
Yeah, well, quite. Anyway, we are definitely running long, so we better think about wrapping this here show up. But not before Tim tells you about Tuesday being Tuesday. Tim, is Tuesday still Tuesday?
Tuesday is still Tuesday. I can confirm that definitely, Dan.
Excellent, good. And what's happening this Tuesday, this rapidly hot on approach Tuesday?
Hot on approach. This here Tuesday, as each and every Tuesday, we do an event called Tabletop Tuesday in the loading bar in Dalston. And if you come along to the event, you can play our feature game. And if you play the feature game that evening, you have a chance of winning a copy of that game at the end of the night. This week's feature game is an odd one. I say odd because it's slightly difficult to describe and pronounce. I'm guessing Senryaku?
Senryaku. Something like that.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
How'd you do, Ken?
Basically, it's, a bit like a smaller version of drafts or checkers, and on a little board that also tilts. Now, as you move towards the opponent, and you can only move forward, you can't move backwards, you have to take into account, your movements have to take into account the balance of the board. Because if you tilt the board and everything rolls off, then you lose.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's a little bit different. I think it will be a good one for the bar.
So it's extreme drafts. Okay, fair enough.
Drafts on a seesaw. Not to be confused with drafts on a seesaw, which doesn't work.
Giraffes on a seesaw?
No, that's what I meant. Giraffes on a seesaw.
Giraffes on a seesaw. I'd pay money for that.
They've got very long legs. It makes the seesaw have to be very high. Going down is bad for them. It's not a good look, Dan.
They'll break their necks.
Yeah.
They'll break their
fragile necks, fragile legs, and seesaws is a bad mix.
I know, but they will always stick their neck out in the name of entertainment.
There's thousands of Jeffreys.
Good, marvellous. Now, the other thing I was going to remind people of as well, something that is rapidly approaching that we're all very proud to be a part of, is Extra Life 2018 doth approacheth. And we're, as usual, going to be fielding a team with the great and good from BRB. Diarmuid is our fearless captain. And we shall hopefully be raising money for the kids. And I believe it's November 3rd this year.
Yeah, that's the official game day. Obviously, people still planning when they're going to do it. A few people may end up kind of doing like 12-hour stints over 2 weekends or something. That's entirely acceptable, and that's built into the rules.
Exactly.
Yes, I think
there aren't really any rules. It's just play games and have fun.
Having turned 40 recently, I think I'm going to have to be the first year where I don't do the full 24 hours.
I must say, me and Kev rapidly reached a gentleman's agreement last year to do 2 12-hour stints. It was actually turned into 2 16-hour stints. But I did appreciate the sleep. It was marvellous. And it did mean that actually there was, in a continuous fun fashion, there was over 36 hours of video gaming goodness being broadcast from the great and good Big Red Barrel on Twitch. So I actually think that means you get a better deal out of us. I think. Does it?
Yeah.
I think it does.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
At the end of the day, it's raising money for kids. So keep an eye peeled on www.bigredbarel.com, twitch.tv/BigRedBarel or BigRedBarel TV, one or both of those things. Or indeed, make sure we've got a page up on Big Red Barrel which can point you in the direction.
Yeah, I'll do up an article with links to everyone's donation pages, their streaming sites, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, you'll get all of that information before the event. Hopefully you can join us. If not, any donations are welcome.
Yes, indeed. Especially to me, I need all the donations. So yeah, anyway, that I think is pretty much a lot. So make sure, ladies and gents, to run off to internet/.thing/BigRedBarel. Just put it into your, just anything, and then a /BigRedBarel in your internet and see what happens. We're not responsible for any dodgy content you do come across, however. So it's been a show. It's been episode 313. Next up is A314. I shall be spending my next week.
Oh no, Dan.
Or should I be looking for the B314? Would you prefer? Would that be more on brand?
No. Yes, but no.
All right. Okay.
No.
It's the Pi episode.
Oh no, that's 3.14.
I thought it was 314.
Yeah,
3.14.
But But we didn't have an episode 3.14, Dan.
Well, although we had about we had an episode 3 and about 8.5 minutes into that would be episode 3.14.
Okay, well, in that case, my joke is dead.
Yes. Yes, it is.
On the floor.
Yes.
Killed it.
There is an A314.
Base humor.
What's the... Oh, it's 113. I was thinking of the Pixar thing that keeps recurring. That's a complete. Anyway,
there's loads. Tell you what, I've got loads of good. I'm good up until episode 330, 50.
Oh God! Do we really have to put up with like 85 episodes of you giving us?
We have A3XX roads up until 399. You'll be pleased to know. Although A398 is unused, you can have a week off that week.
If by please you mean torturously like haunted, then yes.
Okay, I can't even tempt you with the A314 from Hamworth to Hounslow.
Clearly not.
No, all right. Well, well, look forward to way to return to, which is Guildford to Staines upon Thames. So that's been a show. This has been episode 313 of BRB UK. I have been Dan.
I might have been bored by A-Roads.
Yeah, whatever.
I've definitely been doing
it. Diarmuid. So thank you ever so much for downloading us and nestling us in your headface. And until next time, dear listeners, toodle bye.
You and your ears are quite welcome
for the podcasting goodness that you just heard.
Why not roll on over
to BigRedBarel.com
for more podcasts,
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarel.com.